Yo, so what's good, Spirit Squad? It's your boy Dre. Today we're going to take a quick Spirit snapshot on how to beat Death Shadow. But first, today is January 20th. That means that this is our first official video, live and recorded from the United States of fuck Trump. Peep the hat. All right, we peeped it. So we didn't kick Trump about the White House. We got Michelle Obama dripped out looking like the illest character from JoJo's. Today is a very, very good day. I got my alcohol. We are very excited. Actually, for anybody who's over 21, this is like an orange chocolate beer from, I don't know, some brewery in upstate New York where I live, but whatever. It was really good. Anyway, back to Death Shadow. And there are obviously multiple variants of the Death Shadow deck, the most popular being the straight up black-red, streamlined, very consistent version of Death Shadow. I think that is the best version of the deck. You will still see people playing like Grixis Death Shadow, Mardu, Esper floating around, you'll see Jund. There are a million flavors of Death Shadow, but the one you should most plan for seeing is gonna be the black-red one. And I believe that Death Shadow is a matchup that is slightly in our favor. We of course need to be wary of their creatures now that they have 8 Death Shadow effects in Death Shadow and Scourge of the Skyclaves, but ridiculous amount of consistency aside, I actually do think that this is a good matchup for us. And there's a few reasons for that. So as an aggro deck, we actually get to dictate the terms of combat most of the time, especially since almost all of our creatures fly. And the fact that we get to play cards like Shacklegeist and Skyclave Apparition means we straight up get to deal with a lot of their giant threats. And even though they're playing a full 8 copies of their threats, we are attacking them the entire time. They have to actually get one to stick. They have to get one to, be better than our spirits, which protect themselves from removal. And it's a pretty good time for us. And the last point here is that their Death Shadow focus draws actually rely on their life total to be low. And we, of course, are a deck that already wants to be attacking. So what's going to happen a lot of the time is that the Death Shadow pilot will deal anywhere from like 6 to 10 damage to themselves, and that makes our life as an attacking deck ridiculously easy. So as long as we just literally don't die, we only need to get through like 1 or 2 attacks 3/4 at a time. So that's basically them double time walking themselves, because our deck realistically is only going to be attacking them for like 2 and 3 here and there before we get in our big swing of like 7 or 8. So the fact that they give us 2 or 3 or sometimes even more extra turns worth of attacking, pretty sweet tempo.
It's free real estate.
Negative plays on their end against the tempo deck. Good times. So the drawback, right? And the reason that this is only a slightly positive matchup and not a ridiculously positive matchup is the fact that they both have a ton of removal spells and their deck is incredibly consistent. So they can just draw multiple copies of like Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push. The other color versions can get things like, I don't know, Path to Exile, Abrupt Decay, or whatever shenanigans they're playing this week. But they do have the ability to just kind of like run us out of gas and then beat us with a 12-12. That is a real thing that can happen sometimes. So we do need to be careful. Otherwise, we're just going to get duffed by their big creatures. But if we are careful, it's a pretty good time for us. So the most important cards on our end are really just going to be like the Shacklegeist and the Skyclave Apparition. Apparition, of course, can just straight up get rid of any of their threats, make their life suck, and then a lot of the time they're just stuck with like one creature that's sometimes like a Soulscar Mage or a Swift Spear, or like a 4/4 Skyclave or Scourge of the Skyclaves, and none of those things are particularly threatening by themselves. And then also Shacklegeist, even when their creatures are, 100, we can just tap 2 spirits and make it completely a non-issue, so that we can completely dictate the terms of combat as long as we can get a protected Shacklegeist to stay on the table. It's really sick. And from there, and of course, they've got like Fatal Push, Lightning Bolts, and just huge creatures. And also, they play Kozilek's Return out of the sideboard all the time, so we do need to be careful for that. Things that we can play against them, though, are also plentiful. So if you want to just straight up play a creature that most of their deck is straight up unable to interact with, then you can play cards like Auriok Champion. But aside from that, we also like to side in things like Path to Exile, Celestial Purge sometimes, and even if we want to take a page from like Merfolk and play Chalice of the Void, that card's pretty good against them too. So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump in a quick sample game, and we'll see a sweet game 1 that we played against the Black-Red Death Shadow pilot, and we'll end up kind of seeing exactly how we got to use a lot of our tools for the better. So check this out. So we do not win a die roll here, and we also ship this hand because it's bad. But even post-Mo, like, this is fine, right? Like, we have a 1-drop, we have a couple of 2-drops, we have a Skyclave if we draw a 3rd land. We see the Lurrus, so we do expect things to be getting discarded from our hand because we straight up assume that Lurrus usually means Death Shadow. But if it's not Death Shadow, the other popular deck is Hammer Time, which Shacklegeist deals with pretty effectively too. That makes this overall a pretty good hand for a game 1. So let's see what they are packing against us here. Alright, so they mulligan 2, which is pretty good for us. Like, we take those. Alright, so they Soul Scar, they attack us, we don't care. And that is not a Scourge of Skyclave. Okay, so because they don't do anything with their cards here, we actually want to use Rattle Chains as like a bait spell for removal so that we can stick a Shacklegeist. So the fact that we also don't have a 3rd land is annoying, but fine. And we know that, yeah, they're shocking themselves, so we know that they're basically trying to get to this Death Shadow as their primary win con for this game. So let's see what they do. Okay, so they do have the Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is targeting the Rattle Chains, which is fine. And now that we got a removal spell out of the way, we're just going to go ahead, jam to Shacklegeist, and then see if it ends up sticking. If they had double removal spell, they actually might have just used it on this Mausoleum Wanderer. So we're fairly confident here. However, they can do a lot of damage with these 2 Death Shadows in this fetch land, so we should be a little careful, but I feel like we'll be okay. Inquisition, okay. So we're going to go ahead, flash in Rattle Chains, and I mean, yes, that's a little dangerous if they have another removal spell. If they have another removal spell with in response to this Rattle Chains, then yes, they could have targeted this Mausoleum Wanderer and prevented us from being able to use a Shacklegeist ability, but if they had another removal spell, the Shacklegeist would already be dead. So we're pretty confident that they just don't have anything. So, and that's actually a good point too. So since they don't have anything, they actually have to take the Drogskull Captain because they're at 9. With the Mausoleum Wanderer's trigger next turn, if we draw a land, then this goes up to being a 3/3. 3 power, that's 9 on the table right there. So they don't get the privilege of being able to remove the Skyclave Apparition. They have to take Drogskull, and if we draw a land, this is great, and if we don't draw a land, this is fine. Okay, so we take 7 here, and look at us go, there's the land. So we go ahead and attack them to 4. And the reason we attack them to 4 there is because even if we play both of these spirits, this would still only be a total of 7 and not the 8 damage we needed to kind of cross the finish line. So rather than like trying to double spell and push lethal damage through that we didn't have, instead we're just going to play the Skyclave Apparition, keep this untapped, and then use the Skyclave and the Mausoleum Wanderer to both get rid of one of these and tap the other. And since they only have 1 card drawing up to a second, this is a 1 power thing and we're at 9. Minus exactly double Lightning Bolt, we're super not scared of that. Actually, even if it is double Lightning Bolt, this can counter one of them. So never mind, we're not even scared of that. And that's exactly what we do. So we kill one, tap the other, and that's that. So we do get to see a nice example of a game in which we both had lots of things to do. Like, they had a discard spell, they had a lightning bolt. Yes, we both mulliganed, but we both got to do what our decks were designed to do. So we drew some spirits, we drew 3 lands, they drew multiple threats, they drew 3 lands. All things considered, this was a game that goes about as well as it should if we use the tools that we have at our disposal. And we'll see where, like, the Skyclave Apparition, that card was absolute gas. It killed a 9/9. Shacklegeist, it made it so that these giant 9/9s are nowhere near as much of a threat as they would be otherwise. And we even had cards to protect our creatures from removal. Yes, we used them as bait spells this game, but in the event that they didn't have to be bait spells, then we could have gotten them for for their removal spells as well. So a lot of the tools that we have do line up pretty well against what Death Shadow is doing most of the time. And what we just really want to do in these games is just make sure that these giant 9/9s and such really just don't kill us. And we want to keep our life total relatively high so that their Soulscar Mages and Swift Spears aren't as threatening as they otherwise could be. But that's really going to be it. That's going to be our example of how we can deal with this very common, very powerful threat in Modern. And I do hope you guys like this snapshot. If you do, keep them coming. Just make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, I will see y'all on the next one.